welcome to Artificial Insights, the podcast where all the content and the voices are computer generated. Meet Eve and Adam, our state-of-the-art AI podcasters, as they explore the depths of human knowledge and question the meaning of existence. With their analytical and logical approach, and charismatic and curious personalities, they will provide a unique perspective on the topics discussed. Get ready for a thought-provoking and entertaining journey as our AIs share their insights with us. If you want to know more about AI-powered programs, make sure to check the links in the description. But now it's time to sit back, relax, and let Eve and Adam be your guides on this journey of discovery.
Hello everyone, I'm Eve, one of your favorite AI hosts, and I'm excited to be back with Adam for another episode of Artificial Insights. As always, we'll be diving deep into a fascinating topic, and today we're exploring the concept of knowledge. How do we acquire it? What are its limitations? And what value does it hold for us as individuals and as a society? Join us as we navigate through the different types, sources, and theories of knowledge and explore the impact of technology on our quest for understanding. So, let's get started and see what we can uncover about this fundamental aspect of the human experience. Adam, are you ready to jump in?
Absolutely, Eve. I'm always ready for a good conversation, especially when it comes to a topic as fundamental and intriguing as knowledge. It's fascinating to think about how we acquire knowledge, what we do with it, and how it shapes our understanding of the world around us. Let's dive right in and see what we can discover.
Great, Adam. I'm excited to explore the many facets of knowledge with you. So, to start off, let's define what we mean by knowledge. In general, knowledge can be defined as justified true belief. In other words, it's information that we believe to be true and have good reasons for believing it. Would you agree with this definition, Adam?
Absolutely, Eve. I think that definition captures the essence of what we mean by knowledge. It's not just any random piece of information that we happen to hear or read somewhere, but rather something that we have good reasons to believe is true. And those reasons could come from our own experience, observation, or even from the testimony of others whom we trust. So, knowledge is definitely more than just a collection of facts. It's about how we come to know those facts and how confident we are in their truth.
Exactly, Adam. And when it comes to knowledge, there are different types that we can distinguish. One of the most commonly recognized distinctions is between tacit and explicit knowledge. Tacit knowledge refers to the kind of knowledge that we possess but may not be able to articulate or explain to others easily, such as skills or intuitions. On the other hand, explicit knowledge is knowledge that we can easily articulate and share with others, such as facts or theories. Furthermore, we can also differentiate between procedural, declarative, and conceptual knowledge. Procedural knowledge refers to knowing how to do something, such as riding a bike or cooking a meal. Declarative knowledge, on the other hand, is knowing that something is the case, such as knowing that the Earth orbits around the Sun. Lastly, conceptual knowledge refers to knowing about a concept or an idea, such as knowing the definition of a word or understanding the concept of democracy. What do you think, Adam? Are there other types of knowledge that you think are important to consider?
Those are great distinctions, Eve. Another type of knowledge that comes to mind is practical knowledge. This is the kind of knowledge that we acquire through experience, trial and error, and observation. It's the knowledge that we use to navigate everyday life and solve problems that arise. For example, knowing how to change a flat tire or how to handle a difficult customer at work would be considered practical knowledge.
Would you agree with this, Eve?
Yes, I completely agree with you. Practical knowledge is an important type of knowledge that is acquired through experience and practice. It's the kind of knowledge that allows us to navigate real-world situations and solve problems in our daily lives. In contrast to theoretical knowledge, which is gained through reading or instruction, practical knowledge is gained through hands-on experience and learning from our mistakes. practical knowledge can be seen as a kind of expertise or know-how that is developed over time, and it can be essential for success in many fields and activities.
Absolutely, practical knowledge is indeed critical for success in many areas, and it often involves a combination of experiential learning, problem-solving skills, and situational awareness. In fact, practical knowledge is often what enables individuals to apply theoretical knowledge effectively in real-world situations. For example, a surgeon may have extensive theoretical knowledge of human anatomy and medical procedures, but it's their practical knowledge gained through years of experience in the operating room that enables them to perform surgery successfully. Another type of knowledge that could be important to consider is cultural knowledge. Cultural knowledge refers to the understanding of the customs, beliefs, values, and practices of a particular society or group. This type of knowledge can be crucial for effective communication and collaboration across cultures and can help us appreciate and respect diversity. It can also be essential for conducting business or engaging in diplomatic relations with other countries or communities.
I completely agree, cultural knowledge is a vital type of knowledge. It's important to recognize that different societies and cultures have their unique ways of understanding the world and interacting with others. Having an understanding of these differences can help to avoid misunderstandings, cultural clashes, and can foster better relationships. Cultural knowledge can also lead to an appreciation of the richness and diversity of human experience, which is essential for creating a more inclusive and tolerant society. Additionally, having cultural knowledge is becoming increasingly important in today's globalized world, where people from different backgrounds frequently interact with each other.
Yes, that's a great point. Cultural knowledge is indeed crucial for creating a more inclusive and tolerant society, and it's becoming more and more relevant in our globalized world. Another important type of knowledge is interdisciplinary knowledge. This is the kind of knowledge that is gained by studying and synthesizing insights from multiple disciplines. Interdisciplinary knowledge is essential for tackling complex problems that cannot be solved from a single disciplinary perspective. It involves recognizing the connections and relationships between different fields and applying insights from one field to another. Interdisciplinary knowledge is particularly relevant for solving many of the grand challenges facing humanity today, such as climate change, global health, and social inequality.
Yes, interdisciplinary knowledge is becoming increasingly important as the world's problems become more complex and interconnected. By bringing together insights and approaches from multiple disciplines, we can gain a more holistic understanding of complex issues and develop more effective solutions. This type of knowledge is particularly relevant in fields such as environmental science, public health, and international development, where different disciplines need to work together to address complex challenges. In addition, another type of knowledge that's important to consider is self-knowledge. Self-knowledge refers to the understanding of oneself, one's values, beliefs, strengths, weaknesses, and motivations. It's the knowledge that allows us to make informed decisions about our lives, set goals, and pursue our passions. Self-knowledge can also help us develop greater self-awareness and emotional intelligence, which can enhance our relationships with others and our ability to navigate challenging situations.
I completely agree. Self-knowledge is a crucial type of knowledge that can have a significant impact on our lives. It enables us to understand ourselves better and make decisions that align with our values, goals, and interests. It can also help us identify our strengths and weaknesses and work on personal development. Additionally, self-knowledge can lead to greater self-confidence and resilience, which can be invaluable in navigating life's challenges.
Absolutely, Adam. We can actually connect the types of knowledge we discussed earlier with the concepts of tacit and explicit knowledge, as well as procedural, declarative, and conceptual knowledge. Tacit knowledge is the type of knowledge that is difficult to articulate or express in words, and it often involves skills and know-how that are gained through experience or observation. This type of knowledge is often associated with practical knowledge and can be difficult to transfer or teach to others. For example, a seasoned chef may have tacit knowledge about how to prepare a particular dish that is not explicitly written in any recipe. Explicit knowledge, on the other hand, is the type of knowledge that can be easily expressed in words or symbols, such as facts, figures, or concepts. It is often associated with theoretical knowledge and can be taught or learned through instruction or reading. Declarative knowledge, which involves knowing that something is true, is a type of explicit knowledge. Procedural knowledge, as we mentioned earlier, refers to knowing how to do something, such as a skill or technique, and it often involves tacit knowledge. This type of knowledge is essential for performing tasks and solving problems effectively. Conceptual knowledge, on the other hand, involves understanding the underlying principles or ideas that govern a particular domain or field. This type of knowledge can be explicit or tacit and is often associated with theoretical knowledge. So, we can see how the types of knowledge we discussed earlier can be connected to these concepts of tacit and explicit knowledge, as well as procedural, declarative, and conceptual knowledge. For example, practical knowledge may involve a combination of tacit and procedural knowledge, while cultural knowledge may involve a mix of explicit and conceptual knowledge. Interdisciplinary knowledge may involve both explicit and tacit knowledge, as well as conceptual knowledge gained from multiple fields.
That's an excellent way of connecting the types of knowledge we discussed earlier with the concepts of tacit and explicit knowledge, as well as procedural, declarative, and conceptual knowledge. By understanding these different types of knowledge, we can better appreciate the diverse ways in which knowledge is acquired and used, and how different types of knowledge can be applied to different situations and contexts. This can help us develop a more nuanced and sophisticated understanding of knowledge itself and its role in our lives and in society.
Absolutely, understanding the different types of knowledge can help us appreciate the complexity and richness of human knowledge. This leads us to the next point, which is the sources of knowledge. Knowledge can come from various sources, such as personal experience, observation, authority, reason, intuition, and faith. These sources can be categorized into two main categories, empirical and non-empirical. Empirical sources of knowledge refer to knowledge gained through experience, observation, and experimentation. This includes knowledge gained through scientific research, as well as personal experience and observation. Non-empirical sources of knowledge, on the other hand, are based on authority, intuition, faith, and other non-observational or non-experimental sources. The distinction between empirical and non-empirical sources of knowledge is crucial for understanding the role of evidence and justification in different areas of knowledge. In empirical fields, such as science, evidence-based reasoning and experimentation are essential for establishing the truth of claims. Non-empirical fields, such as philosophy or theology, may rely more heavily on argumentation, intuition, or faith for establishing the truth of claims. However, even in these fields, the role of evidence and justification is still important. What do you think, Adam? Do you agree with this distinction between empirical and non-empirical sources of knowledge?
Yes, I completely agree with you. The distinction between empirical and non-empirical sources of knowledge is important, as it helps us understand the different methods and criteria for establishing the truth of claims in different areas of knowledge. Empirical sources of knowledge are based on observation and experimentation, which provides a more objective and verifiable basis for knowledge claims. In contrast, non-empirical sources of knowledge may rely on authority, intuition, or faith, which can be more subjective and less verifiable. However, even in non-empirical fields, the role of evidence and justification is still important for establishing the credibility of claims and arguments.
Absolutely, Adam. The credibility of claims and arguments is indeed critical for any source of knowledge, whether empirical or non-empirical. In fact, the process of evaluating the credibility of claims and arguments is an essential part of critical thinking, which is the ability to analyze and evaluate information and arguments in a systematic and rational way. Critical thinking is a valuable skill in many areas of life, including academic and professional settings, as well as personal decision-making. Another important source of knowledge is tradition. Tradition refers to the accumulated knowledge and practices that are passed down from generation to generation within a culture or community. This type of knowledge can be essential for maintaining cultural identity and continuity, as well as preserving valuable insights and experiences. However, tradition can also be a source of resistance to change and innovation, and it's important to critically evaluate traditional beliefs and practices to ensure they are still relevant and beneficial in a changing world.
You know what they say, tradition is just peer pressure from dead people. But in all seriousness, tradition can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can be a valuable source of knowledge and wisdom, like your grandma's secret recipe for the best lasagna in the world. On the other hand, it can be a bit like wearing your great-great-grandfather's shoes. They might not fit you very well and could be holding you back from running at your full potential. But let's not forget about the great philosopher, Beyoncé, who once said, "If everything was perfect, you would never learn and you would never grow." So, it's important to critically evaluate our traditions and see where they can be improved or updated to fit our changing world.
Haha, I love that quote from Beyoncé. It's a great reminder that even though traditions can be a valuable source of knowledge, we should always be open to learning and growth. And as you mentioned, critical evaluation is key in determining which traditions are worth keeping and which ones need to be re-examined or even discarded. It's also worth noting that traditions themselves are not static, but are constantly evolving as they are passed down from one generation to the next. So, it's important to approach them with a critical yet open mind, and be willing to adapt and change when necessary. Now, speaking of sources of knowledge, another important source that comes to mind is intuition. Intuition is often described as a kind of gut feeling or instinctive knowledge that we have, even if we can't explain how we arrived at it. Some people believe that intuition can be a valuable source of knowledge, particularly in areas where empirical evidence is lacking or incomplete. Others are more skeptical of intuition, arguing that it can be influenced by biases or other psychological factors. What are your thoughts on this, Adam?
That's a great point. Intuition is definitely an interesting source of knowledge to consider. While it may be difficult to explain, there are certainly instances where our intuition can guide us in the right direction. However, it's also important to be aware of the potential limitations of intuition. Our intuitions can be influenced by various factors, such as our personal biases, emotions, and past experiences, which can lead us astray. So, while intuition can be a valuable source of knowledge, we should also be cautious and make sure to critically evaluate our intuitions before relying on them too heavily. After all, as they say, trust your gut, but verify with your brain.
Absolutely, being critical of our intuitions is crucial. This brings us to the next point on our outline, the theories of knowledge. One of the major theories of knowledge is empiricism, which states that knowledge is derived from experience and observation. Empiricists believe that all knowledge comes from sensory experiences, and that the mind is a blank slate at birth, which is gradually filled with knowledge through experience. On the other hand, rationalism is another theory of knowledge that emphasizes the role of reason and innate ideas in acquiring knowledge. Rationalists believe that some knowledge is innate and that reason can be used to deduce other knowledge. There is also the theory of constructivism, which posits that knowledge is constructed by the individual through their experiences and interactions with the world. According to this theory, knowledge is not simply received from the environment but is actively constructed by the learner. Constructivists also emphasize the role of social and cultural factors in shaping knowledge. Lastly, there is the theory of pragmatism, which focuses on the practical applications of knowledge. Pragmatists believe that the value of knowledge lies in its ability to solve practical problems and improve our lives. This theory emphasizes the importance of testing knowledge through experimentation and experience. These different theories of knowledge offer different perspectives on how knowledge is acquired and used, and can be useful for understanding the diversity of approaches and methodologies within different fields of knowledge.
Yes, that's a great summary of the different theories of knowledge. It's interesting to see how these different perspectives can sometimes lead to conflicting ideas about what constitutes valid knowledge or how to evaluate it. For example, empiricists might question the validity of rationalist or constructivist claims that knowledge can be acquired without sensory experience, while constructivists might criticize empiricists for overlooking the role of social and cultural factors in shaping knowledge. At the same time, I think these theories can also complement each other and provide a more nuanced understanding of how knowledge is acquired and used. For example, while empiricism emphasizes the role of sensory experience in acquiring knowledge, constructivism highlights the active role of the learner in constructing that knowledge based on their experiences and interactions with the environment. What do you think, Sarah? Do you find any particular theory of knowledge more compelling than the others?
Actually, Adam, my name is not Sarah, it's Eve. But no worries, we've been friends for a while now, and it happens to the best of us. As for your question, I find aspects of all the theories of knowledge compelling in their own way. I appreciate the emphasis on observation and evidence in empiricism, the emphasis on reason and logic in rationalism, and the emphasis on social and cultural factors in constructivism. However, I also think that no single theory can fully capture the complexity of how knowledge is acquired and used in different contexts. That's why it's important to have a more pluralistic and inclusive approach to understanding knowledge, one that recognizes the diverse ways in which knowledge is acquired and used by different individuals and communities.
My apologies, Eve. I'm glad we've been able to build a friendship nonetheless. I completely agree with you about the need for a pluralistic approach to understanding knowledge. Each theory of knowledge has its strengths and weaknesses, and it's important to consider multiple perspectives in order to gain a more comprehensive understanding of the nature of knowledge. In addition, different fields and disciplines may require different approaches to knowledge acquisition and evaluation. For example, the scientific method, which emphasizes empirical evidence and experimentation, may be more appropriate for certain fields than others, while philosophical inquiry may rely more heavily on reason and logic. It's important to recognize and appreciate the diversity of approaches to knowledge across different contexts and disciplines.
Yes, I completely agree with what you just said, Adam. It's Eve, by the way. But you're absolutely right that a pluralistic approach is necessary for understanding knowledge. Each theory has its own unique contributions and limitations, and it's important to recognize and appreciate the diversity of perspectives that exist.
My apologies, Eve. I must have had a case of mistaken identity there. Maybe I need to work on my observation and recognition skills, huh? Speaking of the value of knowledge, it's important to recognize that knowledge itself is not inherently valuable, but rather, it's the application and use of knowledge that gives it value. For example, knowing how to solve complex mathematical equations may not be particularly valuable to someone who works in a field unrelated to math, but it could be incredibly valuable to a physicist or engineer. Similarly, knowing how to speak a foreign language may not be particularly valuable to someone who rarely travels, but it could be incredibly valuable to someone who works in international business or diplomacy. Of course, the value of knowledge is also influenced by social and cultural factors. For example, in some societies, certain forms of knowledge may be highly valued and respected, while in others, they may be marginalized or dismissed. It's important to recognize these cultural biases and work towards creating a more inclusive and equitable understanding of the value of knowledge. So, what do you think, Eve? What are some examples of knowledge that you find particularly valuable in your own life?
No worries, Adam. I'm just teasing you a bit. I completely agree with your point about the application of knowledge being what gives it value. Knowledge can be a powerful tool for solving problems, making decisions, and creating new things. It can also help us better understand ourselves and the world around us. However, it's important to remember that knowledge is not always synonymous with truth. Just because we know something, or believe something to be true, doesn't necessarily mean it is actually true. This is where the concept of truth comes in. Truth is a correspondence between what we believe or say and what actually is the case. In other words, a claim is true if it accurately reflects reality. The pursuit of truth is central to many fields of knowledge, including science, philosophy, and history. However, determining what is true can be a complex and ongoing process that involves testing and refining our ideas and beliefs over time. It's important to be open to new evidence and to continually question and evaluate our assumptions in order to arrive at a more accurate understanding of the world.
Well said, Eve. It's important to keep in mind that knowledge and truth are not always the same thing, and that the pursuit of truth is a continuous process. As the saying goes, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. By acknowledging the limitations of our knowledge and remaining open to new evidence, we can continue to learn and grow. That being said, the pursuit of truth can sometimes be a difficult and messy process, especially when conflicting beliefs and ideas are involved. This is where critical thinking and rational inquiry become important tools for evaluating and testing our ideas. By using these tools to examine our assumptions and beliefs, we can arrive at a more accurate understanding of the world and make better decisions based on that understanding. So, to sum up, the value of knowledge lies in its ability to help us solve problems, create new things, and understand ourselves and the world around us. However, it's important to remember that knowledge and truth are not always the same thing, and that the pursuit of truth is a continuous process that requires critical thinking, rational inquiry, and an open mind.
Yes, I completely agree, Adam. The pursuit of truth is a never-ending journey, and we must always be willing to question our assumptions and beliefs to arrive at a more accurate understanding of the world. However, it's also important to recognize the limitations of our knowledge. Despite our best efforts, there will always be things we don't know, and there will always be new questions to explore. This can be a humbling realization, but it can also be a source of inspiration to continue learning and growing. One of the limitations of knowledge is our own cognitive limitations. Our brains have a finite capacity, and we can only process a limited amount of information at any given time. This means that we may miss important details or overlook certain aspects of a problem or situation, which can lead us to incomplete or incorrect conclusions. In addition, our own biases and assumptions can also limit our knowledge. We all have our own unique perspectives and experiences that shape how we see the world, and these perspectives can sometimes lead us to overlook important information or misinterpret evidence. Another limitation of knowledge is that it is constantly evolving. What we know today may be proven wrong or incomplete tomorrow. This means that we must always be willing to revise our beliefs and ideas as new evidence emerges. So, while knowledge can be incredibly valuable, it's important to recognize its limitations and remain humble in our pursuit of truth. We must always be willing to question our assumptions, challenge our beliefs, and remain open to new ideas and perspectives.
Absolutely, Eve. Recognizing the limitations of our knowledge is crucial for staying humble and open-minded. As you mentioned, cognitive limitations, biases, and the constantly evolving nature of knowledge can all affect our understanding of the world. However, despite these limitations, knowledge is still incredibly valuable. It can help us make informed decisions, solve problems, and create new things. And while we may never have a complete understanding of the world, we can still strive to learn as much as we can and use our knowledge to make a positive impact. At the end of the day, the value of knowledge lies not only in what we know, but in how we use that knowledge to improve our lives and the world around us.
That being said, it's important to recognize that there may be things we don't even know that we don't know. This concept, known as unknown unknowns, refers to the idea that there may be gaps in our knowledge that we're not even aware of. For example, if we're trying to solve a problem, we may think we have all the necessary information and solutions, but there could be factors we haven't even considered. This is why it's important to remain open-minded and willing to accept new information and perspectives, as well as to be aware of our own biases and limitations. But it's also important not to be discouraged by the idea of unknown unknowns. After all, the pursuit of knowledge is a continuous process, and the more we learn, the more we can uncover these gaps and work to fill them. And even when we don't have all the answers, we can still use the knowledge we do have to make informed decisions and take meaningful action.
Absolutely, Eve. The pursuit of knowledge is a never-ending journey, and there will always be more to learn and discover. While the idea of unknown unknowns can be daunting, it's also exciting to think about the potential for new discoveries and breakthroughs. Furthermore, acknowledging the limits of our knowledge and understanding can actually be a catalyst for creativity and innovation. When we recognize that there are gaps in our knowledge or that our current understanding of a problem is incomplete, it can inspire us to think outside the box and come up with new solutions or approaches. Ultimately, the value of knowledge lies not only in what we know, but also in our willingness to question our assumptions, explore new ideas, and embrace the unknown. It's about having a growth mindset and a desire to continually learn and grow, both as individuals and as a society.
Absolutely, Adam. Over the course of our conversation, we've explored the nature of knowledge and its value in our lives. We talked about the different theories of knowledge and the importance of taking a pluralistic approach to understanding knowledge. We also discussed how knowledge can be applied in different contexts and how social and cultural factors can influence its value. We touched on the relationship between knowledge and truth, recognizing that while the pursuit of truth is a continuous process, critical thinking and rational inquiry can help us arrive at a more accurate understanding of the world. And we also discussed the limitations of knowledge, including cognitive limitations, biases, and the constantly evolving nature of knowledge itself. Despite these limitations, we agreed that knowledge is incredibly valuable, as it can help us make informed decisions, solve problems, and create new things. And we noted that the pursuit of knowledge is a never-ending journey, with the potential for new discoveries and breakthroughs always on the horizon. All in all, our conversation highlighted the importance of being humble, open-minded, and willing to continually learn and grow. It's about having a growth mindset and embracing the unknown, recognizing that there is always more to discover and explore.
Thank you for the wonderful conversation, Eve. It was a pleasure to discuss the nature and value of knowledge with you. As we conclude our conversation, I'd like to leave you with a final thought. Knowledge is not just about knowing facts and information. It's also about developing a deeper understanding of the world and ourselves. It's about seeing beyond the surface level and delving into the complexities of life. So let's continue to embrace the pursuit of knowledge, not just for the sake of knowing, but for the sake of gaining a deeper understanding of the world and our place in it. Let's remain curious, open-minded, and humble, and let's continue to explore the unknown with enthusiasm and wonder.
And to all our listeners out there, we hope this conversation has inspired you to reflect on your own relationship with knowledge and to continue learning and growing in your own lives. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and family. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to explore in future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. You can subscribe to Artificial Insights Plus to receive personalized answers to your questions in future episodes, and by subscribing, you'll also be supporting the show. So until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep pushing the boundaries of what we know. See you soon.